The following is an encore presentation of New Expressions.
And it is 10:04. We're a minute early. How's that? How's that for efficient?
Flying,
Seriously.
Flying New Expressions program.
Off air, arguing all things NBA. Amen.
Or not, you know.
Well, that could be the New Baptist Association.
NBA. I love it.
Could be.
I love it. You
Could
thinking
be.
of something there or not?
Well, no, not really. But I'm just saying our guest, first time guest actually, made a statement, and we made one before he came on. He's new. He's not used to all our dad jokes. We're gonna have fun today, aren't we?
We are so going to have fun because
Oh,
every
yeah.
Friday morning we do have fun.
Yes.
Listeners are going, what have I tuned into? Those of you
Christ
who
and
are
chat.
who
Amen.
are just dialed in 94.9 on your FM dial, you're going to be driving around, maybe sitting in the kitchen having a coffee, I don't know. But otherwise, you'd be listening via the internet on rema.cc and live
Yes, you would.
streaming. And, why not? All the options available.
It's all there.
But this is it, Friday morning's New Expressions program, where we literally brag on the kingdom and the king all hour and celebrate all things kingdom in our region. We love having senior leaders in the body of Christ as part of the conversation, just to hear their heart.
Amen.
To hear what they're seeing, the vision that they see and carry for the region, and something of their story and their journey. Now, I have the great privilege and pleasure of introducing our first-time guest to New Expressions program, Pastor Rob Jenner from Wyoming Church of Christ. You look like you're about to release the balloons there.
No, we're not releasing balloons today. It's
Not today?
extreme weather
It's
event. We're not sure
extreme
where they're
weather,
going to
that's
go,
right.
so we're going to hold back the balloons for the
Cause all
moment.
sorts
Yes.
of drama in that weather.
That's right, yes.
But
yes.
in our hearts, Pastor Rob, we are releasing the balloons.
The balloons are gone.
Because you're our first-time guest, and we love the fact that you've chosen to come into the Rumble Room called the New Expressions program.
The Rumble Room.
And as soon
Thanks for having me, guys.
well, what a pleasure. And as soon as you get going is what I was about to say, and that just was then. The listeners are going to pick up on the fact that you got yourself an accent, which you don't think you have, but you have. And so
Tasmania, isn't he?
Tasmania.
Is he from Tasmania? I thought he was from
That's
Tasmania.
right, Tasmanian accent. That's
There
right.
you go. See that.
Pastor Rob, you are from OS. You've travelled a long way to land yourself on the New South Wales Central Coast. Why don't you paint a bit of a picture for the listening audience about, your story of landing here at as the senior leader of the Wyoming Church of Christ? How did you come to be here on the New South Wales Central Coast? And I'm very interested because a good friend of mine, Major Andrew Humphreys, is a local salvo officer up in Long Jetty. He's had the deepest conviction that nobody accidentally lands on the Central Coast. It's entirely an orchestrated thing by the Spirit of God.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of it, having met you and heard some of your story. Why don't you tell the listening audience how on earth, where did you come from, and how did you get here?
Yeah, thanks again for having me, guys. So I'm originally from San Diego, California, and
There you go.
yeah, and so that's where I get this strange accent. One interesting thing about America is the variety of accents.
Yes.
So in Australia, there's a little nuance, right? I think they say dance down in South Australia,
And
but
that's just plain wrong, by the way.
Yeah,
but it is a
right.
South Australian thing.
Yeah.
yeah, but correct me if I'm wrong, Craig. It seems like in Australia, there's the accent's a bit more universal, monolithic. It's a bit more, you can't really distinguish it. You might a little bit. Where in America, where I'm from, on the West Coast, they kind of, they talk a little bit more like this. If they're from the coast, they kind of draw their accent a little bit more, especially if they surf.
Right.
Where if you're from the South now, you hear me now. If you're
Wow.
That's right. And then if you go to the East Coast, which I don't do very good, Boston or whatever, or New York,
Yeah, see,
It's-
look, it's down by the Christ building. You walk down that far, if you pass it, you're gone too far. I can't do it. I can't do it either. But see, even on the West Coast, see, he's from San Diego, so he'll say San Diego, I'll say Diego. You can understand him, you can't understand the word I'm saying. See, but see, he's from San Diego,
Now, where you're from California as well?
Inglewood.
Oh my goodness, dude! Yeah, that's legit.
Yes,
Yeah.
Inglewood.
Home of the Lakers, actually.
The fabulous form. which we were talking about beforehand. And let me explain. Grew up 4 blocks around the corner from there, so I bleed purple and gold. I'm a Laker fan, but I cheer for the Warriors.
Nice.
I went to school in the Bay Area. I like the Bay Area. So 2 teams, Lakers, Warriors. And no, I don't like that LeBron James is on my squad. Get off. Go play with somebody.
Yeah, that's right.
Get off.
So I'm originally from the West Coast. However, I did about 10 years of ministry in Hawaii, struggling for the Lord, living in Hawaii.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Humid, all the water around you, man. You've been trapped. Nothing to do there.
I know. So I was out there for 10 years, actually serving both on both sides of the island. So on Oahu, so on the east coast of Oahu, as well as in the CBD there, which is Honolulu. So
they were really slaving you out, both sides of the island. Wow.
Yeah, that's right. So I did that. And that was a really great run. So I was there. So I moved from there. Probably interject quickly here. I was married prior to moving to Hawaii. My wife and I moved out there. My beautiful bride, April, going on 16 years now. We have 4 kids. And she's, as we speak and talk about the Lakers and have a laugh, she's currently homeschooling 3 of them. And we also have a 6-month-old. So she is far stronger than I am. So
sorry, she's homeschooling the Lakers.
Homeschooling the Lakers. That's right. They could probably use a little bit of good.
Taylor Braun's in the corner right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Turnover hat on. Anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, I was there for 10 years and then moved to Louisville, Kentucky, which is very different to Honolulu, Hawaii.
Hey,
so
Pastor Mike, just a quick question. Which town is your bride from?
Sorry? Oh, she's from San Diego. So we went to the same high school, same youth group. Yeah, as a mercy, she married me, So.
Everybody from San Diego. That's the same. If you live in San Diego, you can only marry a San Diegoan. That's it.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. That's the way it works.
It's a thing, is it?
It's a thing.
Right.
I guess so.
You did the right thing. Well done, Pastor.
Amelia Gardner is the exception. She married an Australian. She's from San Diego.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, it worked out. Yeah, because I got the better end of the stick, but everybody knows that probably as you can tell us. So,
amen.
Come on.
So, anyway, so that said, moved from Hawaii. Our first child was born in Hawaii.
Wow.
Actually, they would say Hawaii, is that's proper way to say it. So we moved from the island of Oahu to Louisville, Kentucky, which is a very, very different sort of culture, but an absolute privilege and opportunity to attend the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary there in Louisville, Kentucky, under the leadership of Dr. Al Mohler. Al Mohler is just an incredible leader. I encourage all the listeners. He's got a podcast that he does about 4 or 5 days a week called The Briefing. So you go to albertmohler.com and listen to, it's just an analysis of news and events from a Christian worldview. That's something that as parents and Christian leaders, it's absolutely essential. Our world is changing rapidly as we speak. And we need to really assess things from a biblical worldview, not from our gut, not from our intuition, not what we think is right or wrong, but really from the text of Scripture. And Al Mohler does a fantastic job doing some analysis and does a lot of research on that. So just to encourage the listeners, almohler.com, go on The Briefing. So anyway, so I had a chance to work and do my Master of Divinity there for 5 years.
Wow.
And after graduating, have an opportunity to move to and pastor a church in Brisbane, Australia. Brisbane, Vegas.
Vegas, that's the one.
Yeah, so anyway, we were thrilled, just a phenomenal church there in Brisbane. But unbeknownst to us, when we moved out, and unbeknownst to the church, I was on a team of pastors there at this church in Brisbane. And the immigration law, at least back then, was you couldn't remain in the country as an associate pastor. You need to be a senior minister. Wow. So that was actually that was news to us. That really. So you can imagine at the time we had 3 kids, a 1-year-old, a a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and we had moved across from Louisville, Kentucky, all the way to Australia. Everything in the church was going fantastic. What a great fit! Everyone thumbs up. Only to have the carpet pulled out from under our feet abruptly.
Wow.
So that was that was definitely a shock. And basically, our option at the time was either we moved back to America and try to find, and we had just only been in the country for 2 months when we found out this information. And we were still waiting for our container that we had shipped from Louisville to actually to arrive in Australia. So it's like we wanted to have a Chuckayui there in the middle of the Pacific Ocean back to America.
Wow.
Anyway.
What was the church in Brisbane? What was the name of the church in Brisbane?
Grace Bible Church.
Grace Bible Church. Don't know it.
Yeah, fantastic. Again, if your listeners happen to be in Queensland and are looking for a church, there's one there in Holland Park, which is like South Brisbane, and one in Logan, and one in Corinda as well. And you can go on the website, Grace Bible Church. They're a good gospel-centered, just a really great church. So love those brothers there. We thought, hey, we're going to be here the next 20, 30, 40 years. This is great. But in God's providence and in his timing, the Lord had other plans for us, to where literally our only option was, like I was just saying, either go back to America or try to find a job somewhere in Australia where I could tick the box senior pastor, senior minister.
Wow.
So
not knowing anybody, really, is that right? Coming from the other side of the world and not really knowing anyone, and needing to be in a functional space as a senior leader, as a senior pastor.
Yeah, that's right, and it's a bit odd to even just sort of ring churches and say, hey, you don't know me from a bar of soap. I'm a random American guy. Here's my story, and would you want to hire me as your senior minister?
Wow. That's an interesting conversation in any
nice opener. That's a good opener. Yes.
Yeah.
Have they got a deal for you?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So
wow.
Okay.
Rob, wow.
So
yeah.
So what happened?
Okay. So then I started, putting my CV into different churches and.
Just cold calling, huh?
Sorry?
You're just cold calling, just sending things out left, right, and center, were you?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, what else am I supposed to do?
I know. Okay.
So then I found I randomly found a job posting online, and it was Wyoming Church of Christ, and I went, Wyoming? That's back in, isn't that United States? Isn't that like
yes.
Wyoming, Australia. Oh, that's okay. I didn't. And there's next to Niagara Park.
Yeah,
okay, this is interesting.
Yeah,
Niagara Falls. So, okay.
Yeah, So I'm okay. This is I don't know this church at all. So anyway, I emailed in my CV and I actually rang one of the elders there and had a great chat with him, and just a real solid brother, and had a good chemistry with the guy, and said, gosh. Let's really see what the Lord does with this, and started interviewing with them, and came down here, did more of an official interview, the typical stuff, preached at the church, had an AGM, all those things, and they were crazy enough to actually vote me in as the senior pastor. So
as I say about here, they were crazy enough to let me in the door. Feed me once.
That's right. And all I knew of the Central Coast, because I like to surf, was Avoca Beach and McMaster's and Copa and that. But I'd never even really heard of Wyoming, to tell you the truth, or any of these spots. So I was just kind of like, oh, this is, and it's just amazing how that sort of worked out. Just been plugging away. That was so this July it'll be 3 years. So it's been,
wow.
It's 2.5 years now. Been plugging away at that, and it's been really exciting, and just in God's kindness and all of this too. I mean, there was quite a large amount of immigration fees that we had to pay, and the church in Brisbane actually shouted all of those fees for the church in Wyoming.
Wow.
How's God's favor there? Is that nice? Yeah.
That's kingdom.
Yeah, that's right. So that was, and we've been plugging along and really seeing people grow in their faith, and things are happening. So
cold calling, how's that? I mean, you'd have had to do it if you'd gone home anyway. You'd had the cold call looking for a job. You might as well do it. You're already here. It beats packing up and moving across the way. But not only did you find something, you found something that's here, full of coastal beaches, surfable. So I mean, right. And in God's college, nothing goes to waste. So obviously, living in or struggling in Hawaii, you'd have had to surf. I mean, they make you do all those treacherous things there. So to be able to put it to use here and still preach, and how's that in a place you've never actually heard of?
Yeah, no, it's really neat how the Lord orchestrated all of this. You know, one thing. And like you said, it's a great place. The Central Coast truly is a great place to live.
Something's happening.
But you know, my heart had actually been the whole time I was in Bible college or seminary. I was wanting to actually come to Australia to pastor a church.
Right.
And so I had lived here 20 years ago in Newcastle. So
get out of here.
Yeah.
So did he?
So did I.
Did you really?
Yes. Yeah, I was 20 years at Rima, Newcastle. That was 6 years ago. So we would have been there on about the same time. Where were you? Where were you based?
So I was in Mayfield area.
Yep. I was in Corlett at first. Not Corlett. Cooks Hill. Corlett was the street. Cooks Hill.
Okay.
And got married and moved to Meriwether. So,
my goodness, Meriwether's beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. Then we had our first child. We were at Waratah. Second child back to Nelson Bay. So, yes. Wow. So, so where were you employed? Where were you ministering?
So I was just there for a season with YWAM, actually.
You're kidding me. Dave Stevenson. Big Dave Stevenson. Yeah. YWAM. Okay, so YWAM, if you're on, I don't think you're still called Corlett Street when it gets to that end, but on my street, if I just walk straight going towards Meriwether, I've got to walk smack right past YWAM. So we were in the same area. So Big Dave Stevenson.
I'm surprised we didn't bump into each other.
Michael Wright spent some time there. Michael Wright used to be an announcer here. He spent time at YWAM. I don't know if you knew Michael. Actually, he's the only person I knew, really.
Two blokes within a couple hundred meters of each other from the other side of the world, speaking the same accent, and you didn't bump into each other.
Did you ever come? Did you ever? Yes, I am. Did you ever come to Rima Newcastle when we had the Remathons? Because the YWAM crew, where we referred to you guys as the Rent a Crowd. So you would come, you would unload, you'd be roadies, unload all the artists, this and that, do odd jobs. I mean, it'd be about 30 rowdy people in there, jumping up and down and screaming.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like them.
Yes,
that's for sure.
Invade the place.
But you're going to deny all knowledge, mind you. The station manager here, he's probably ticking all his boxes at the moment. He's an old school YWAMer from way back.
Yes, he is.
Rick Broom.
Yes, he is.
And Leanne.
They're very rowdy. I mean, they're good when they're apart, but when they're together, you just got to stay out of their way.
Rowdy as.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
criminals.
Funny. That's really funny. So, anyway, I 20 years ago, I had was doing that, and I basically had enough sort of cash at the time where I could travel around. So I spent probably when I left that program, I probably spent, I don't know, 2 months sort of just I met a lot of people that I could stay with from all the way up as far as, say, the Sunshine Coast down as far south as, say, Ulladulla. So I was basically mainly on the coast, just going up and down. And one of the things that I did was for one, I was 20 years old and didn't really have a care in the world, but was visit churches. And I was always struck when I would visit churches, two things. I found that while Aussies were keen to have a chat about spiritual matters, their understanding of the gospel, of the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ and what it means to put their faith in him was very it was very spotty, to say the least. And so extremely a secular society, and it has been even more since I've left and then now come back. And so you had a lot of great opportunities to share the gospel with folks. So that was that was just a real eye opener. But then even when I would visit some of these churches, I remember thinking, whilst there's some nice people here, there's some different ideas about church that I don't see really coming from the scriptures that people are sort of placing in here. There's definitely some ideas about Christ that we don't see represented in the scriptures either. So one of the things that I wanted to do was, even though I'm just a silly Yank, was to come here and just pastor a church, to pastor a local church, and to see people growing in their faith, and to make disciples, and etc. So that was way back 20 years ago. But when I was in Bible college, like I said, for those 5 years, really had a heart to come back here and to do just that. So when I sort of had the option to go either back to America or stay here, I wanted to. This is where I've wanted to be for the last 20 years, really. Yeah. So.
And that's, I think, the key dimension to your story. I'm looking forward to unpacking this some more. We're going to go to a song in a moment, but and
for the rest of Friday as well.
Wonderful. That
That's
sort of
right.
covers that.
That's right.
Today,
That's
tomorrow,
true.
forever.
It encompasses that
today.
I think we can slip that in there.
Nice work. Nice work.
I got to tell you, I'm excited about this. Our guest here. It's
Pastor Rob Jenner from Wyoming Church of Christ.
I mean, you know, all that time in Hawaii, I mean, they cage him up there. I don't know if you've ever been to Hawaii. I mean, once you leave, you need a holiday to get over Hawaii.
Think about it. This guy is drilled in cross-cultural ministry.
Yes.
Right? San Diego into Hawaii,
That's
Oahu,
right. And
for like a truckload of time. Then, remember Kentucky Mike, Pastor Mike from
yes, he is from Kentucky too.
From Lakes Baptist Church.
That's right.
He's Lakes Baptist. He's bound to study the same place you did, actually.
And in Bris, Vegas.
I'm going to ask
I mean,
him.
the guy has been everywhere.
Hey, Pastor Mike, if you're listening.
Finally landed here in the Central Coast for a break. You know, we must apologize, Mike, for your experiences. I feel bad for you.
Why? Why?
Well, you know, he's been forced to get out in the ocean and surf, you know, to fit in with the culture.
Suffering for Jesus.
Yes, you know, carry those surfboards all around, always waxing them, keeping them clean, in the sun all the time. I mean, it's a hard life, man. Seriously. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, that's struggling for Jesus on the Central Coast.
I thought Annie had it bad.
Just before we went to the break, Pastor Rob, you were sharing with us that you'd carried, maybe I don't have the right words, maybe a burden in your heart to minister here in Australia for 20-something years before you actually land here full-time in ministry. And I remember chatting with you off air a while back and hearing some of the story, and I was deeply convinced in my spirit that you were deeply convinced that this is actually an obedient step that you needed to trust the Lord in staying here. When you were faced with a choice of, you know, jump on a plane and go back home or stay here, that was a very costly obedience step, which I had a witness in my heart was absolutely led by the Spirit of God. Is that kind of how you found yourself determining to be here on the Central Coast?
Yeah, so as I was sharing earlier, the church that was there in Brisbane, look, we're very cut from a similar cloth theologically speaking, and so I was thinking this is a great fit. We're going to be here the next 20 or 30 years, and I didn't know who Wyoming Church of Christ was. All I knew of the Central Coast is that it has good surf and some nice beaches, and there's a couple pro surfers from here, and I knew of Andrew Hurd at EV Church and things like that, but that was pretty much the sum and substance of all I really knew of the Central Coast. And so, yeah, it was all sort of new for us, but we really were, I guess, if you want to say, dead set on trying to stay and minister here in this country, in Australia, and it's. Yeah, it hasn't been like any pastor who's going to be honest. It's, you know, it's never a walk in the park. It's never all roses. It's ministry is tough, but it's been a great ride. It's been a great journey so far, and really hoping to sink my roots here as well. Not only here in this nation, not only here on the Central Coast, but would love to at this church. And so, you know, I don't see this as a stepping stone or some kind of thing to help my CV or to look good on a resume, but to actually love and pastor the people that are here, and so yeah.
That's a good day, and it's lovely to hear. I guess I sometimes am a little troubled that someone might approach things any other way.
Yeah.
I did bump into somebody several years ago, not on the coast, but who was a minister actually up in Rockhampton of a large denominational church, and was really quite struggling that he hadn't kind of been swept up into the senior leadership of that particular denomination yet, and felt that that's where his influence ought to be and that he ought to have. And I just said to him, well, what if you built that local church to 10,000 members? You'd have more influence than the senior leader of your denomination. There's an opportunity to grow. He looked at me like I had two heads, but I think but planted in the local setting and loving the people that God's put before you and serving them well, pastoring them, discipling them. This is the language of the kingdom. I know it's a concept that's passionate in the hearts of people like Pastor Craig Corkle from Narara Valley Baptist, done all sorts of study into discipleship, early discipleship of new Christians and the discipleship journey, maturing people into the body of Christ, into faith, into the image of Christ. And that's obviously what's in your heart, Pastor Rob. We bumped into each other because one of the saints that worships at your community, your faith community, had been involved in some evangelism training that we were doing on the coast, and went, oh, you must meet my pastor. And I said, I really must meet your pastor. And all of a sudden we're connected. And she's one of your biggest fans, and it's obvious that you've been very loved and embraced by the faith community here on the Central Coast. I loved the part of the story was the generosity, the kingdom generosity of the church in Brisbane, just to walk with you as a family, to sort of navigate the opportunity to stay. Financially, the cost around staying in the country. I loved hearing that. And it seems to me it was kingdom particularly because there was never going to be any real benefit to that faith community. They were essentially saying goodbye to you at the same time as ensuring that you could continue to walk that obedient walk to the Spirit of God in staying in the nation. It delights me greatly. It delights me greatly that you found a faith community going, we love you, and that you've been able to shape them. Pastor Rob, why don't you just share with us something of what you see for the body of Christ, your faith community at Wyoming and really in this region as well. You started to touch on it, your passion for being clear on the gospel, being clear on some of the nuances about what really is Christ of the Scriptures, what really is a biblical theology to understand these circumstances we're in. Why don't you touch on a few of those things that you might feel appropriate?
Yeah, for sure. Well, again, thanks for the opportunity. And I think one thing that we have seen is important for churches is to have a big view of God, right? As Tozer said, what comes into our mind, A.W. Tozer, what comes in our mind when we think about God is the most important thing about us. And so, look, if you have if your theology, everyone has a theology, by the way.
Yeah.
It might not be a good one.
Yeah.
But everyone has a view of God and themselves and
That's right.
and redemption and all of these things. And so one of the things that we as elders of Wyoming Church of Christ, as we lead the church, we really think is important that people have a big picture, a big view of who God is. And so
Wonderful.
An exciting thing is we've started up, we call them equip classes. And it's basically an adult Sunday school. That used to be quite popular in Australia way back when, in the 50s and 60s. It seems like everyone went to, they'd call it Sunday school.
Yeah.
That's gone, that's, sort of your grandma's old religion now. sadly. And you see that with many Christians. All of us, if we're not careful, our ideas about God and the Bible can be a mile wide and an inch deep, or 1.7 kilometers wide and whatever.
That was not lost on us, Pastor Rob. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have changed gear. There is no longer the imperialistic system of measurement, but a metric system of measurement.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, yeah, well, just, I've got to contextualize, man. So,
cross-cultural ministry, there it is.
Here we go.
That's right. So one of the things that, if you look at the book of Ephesians, Paul, in the very first 3 chapters, he actually doesn't get to how you're necessarily living. He gets to what's called an orthodoxy, right? So that's what's true doctrine, true belief. That's chapters 1 to 3. And then 4, 5, and 6, this is literally how you can split the book, is you want to call it an orthopraxy, or practice of right belief. And people put the cart before the horse, and they start saying, well, how do I live the Christian life? Well, look, you can't live the Christian life without proper and right thinking about who God is. And that's the indicative of chapters 1, 2, and 3 of Ephesians. And then 4, 5, and 6 is the imperative. And one of the things that Paul says in the imperative is he says to equip the saints for the work of ministry, for building up the body of Christ until we all attain the unity of the faith and the knowledge of the Son of God, to mature manhood, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. And then listen to what he says, so that we may no longer be children tossed to and fro by the waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by human cunning, by craftiness and deceitful schemes. So Paul's concern there, he doesn't see theology as just being, you got to just cram your head with a bunch of information, but it's actually life transformation stuff. It's knowing God rightly. And otherwise we are blown about by every wind of doctrine. And sadly, you see that happening with many churches here on the coast today. They're not necessarily driven by conviction, as they're more of utilitarian pragmatism. And so rather than saying, okay, well, what has God said and how do we be obedient to it? It's, well, what works? And that really can get you into a world of trouble. And so one of the things that we're trying to do at our church, though not perfectly, is we call it an equip class. And we've spent the last 6 weeks talking about the atonement, which is relevant coming up to Good Friday, right? What does, and you think, wow, 6 weeks on the atonement, that seems like a lot, but you'd be surprised. Just the atonement's like a diamond, and you can spin it with all its facets and nuances. You want to always have Christ's substitution, if you want to use a technical term, his penal substitution as the center. But other things can flow out of that. So if Christ is the sin bearer, well, he's also the sin conqueror. And that's when we can look into things like Christus Victor, and he's Christ the conqueror. And there's all these important things that, not just cramming your head for information, but being able to think through the beauty and the breadth and depth of what Christ has done at Calvary. And so that's been really exciting. We've had nearly half of our church coming along to that at 8:30 every Sunday morning. 8:30 in the even last week with rain and all, and they're asking just great questions. There's actually a handful of high school students that are coming with their parents.
Wow!
And to me, that's just been really encouraging to see. And these kids are asking mom and dad, "Hey, how does this work out in my local high school? How does this work out here in our family?" And yeah, that's just been really exciting. So. The first sort of series that we started was how to read the Bible, how to read and study and interpret the Bible. And then now we're wrapping up this week with the atonement, and then after school holidays, we'll do one on the Bible, the authority of the Bible, the inerrancy, scripture is without error, all of these things that are just actually plain Orthodox evangelical Christianity type of stuff. But it's absolutely essential that Christians, if we're gonna know God rightly and be able to share about Him, that we actually know the God that we're trying talk about and tell our kids about and all these things. So yeah, that's
so you have that every Sunday morning at 8:30.
Every Sunday morning at 8:30, 299 Henry Perry Drive.
And you so do you have that and then you roll right into church?
Yeah, so our church is at 10 a.m. and so that's our we have one gathering that we get everyone together. But 8:30 we people show up, and currently our associate pastor Dan Kenny is just doing a phenomenal job leading that, and so he's been walking everyone through just these nuances of the atonement and the importance of that, and it's really important too, because look, there's a lot of wonky ideas out there when you start talking about Christ, and you think about with Good Friday coming up. People say, well, we can't have this idea of Jesus actually bearing judgment. That's really just a recipe to see God as some kind of God the Father, as some kind of a divine cosmic child abuser. And that's just some really heretical stuff that people are saying out there. Where when we look at the scriptures, it says that God made him, Christ, his son, who had no sin, to be sin for us, that in him we might become the righteousness of God, right? And so, there's a lot of wonky ideas out there. And so if you can't get your Christology right, you're going to drift in and be blown about by every wind of doctrine. Yeah. And so sorry, go ahead.
No. And I think the flip side of that, is the landing, because I think that's a very helpful scripture to reflect on, and what my deep passion is that we have a body of believers who actually understand that they are actually carrying the righteousness of Christ, Amen. That they are reflective of the righteousness of Christ, instead of I'm some pond slime who's so putrid and self-diminishing in their understanding this beautiful and glorious thing that the cross has established for us, a righteousness in our language based on Jesus plus nothing, attained by faith in the Son of God, a trust and a confidence in who this Christ is. Pastor Rob, that you mentioned, I love that.
I find that he's got high school kids that are actually showing up at 8:30, but hanging around and going straight through church. Yeah. I mean, I would hope my children, when they get to that point, are still invested as they were when they were young.
Come on.
I mean, mine is still there, but I mean that right there, that's excellent, because this world's feeding our young kids.
Meanwhile, stay tuned. New expressions.
Okay, it's coming back, is it?
Well, we're just back.
Are we back?
Stay on. It's on.
Have we ever left? That's the question.
Game on New Expressions program, Rima 94.9 or Rima.cc for all the listeners all around the world. I suspect there's people in Hawaii and Kentucky and even San Diego dialed in today.
I'm sure they are.
Purely because we have, as our guest on the New Expressions program, Pastor Rob Jenner from Wyoming Church of Christ. So good to have you with us. Thanks, mate, for giving us some of your time and for hearing some of your story and journey. Love the fact that the Spirit of God has made it possible that you might be part of the fabric of the body of Christ here in our region. That's a wonderful thing for us, and a wonderful thing for the faith community tucked away in at Wyoming as well.
Yeah. 3 years now, is it? 3 years in?
Going on, yeah, that's right. Going on 3 years.
Going on 3 years in.
Is that
kind of, that's very new? That's very new for a pastor. Well, it should be. Right? Unfortunately, guys sometimes only be jobs for 2 or 3 years. But it used to be guys would have a lot of longevity at churches. So
Are you kind of here indefinitely now, or is it still kind of open for negotiation? Or?
So are we talking Wyoming, or are we talking Australia?
Wyoming, Australia.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know. You should
the church. People. I know you're stuck in that church. You don't want to go. They don't want you to go. That's all good. But is there anything tenuous about your longevity in the country and stuff, or is that a slam dunk yet, or not? Where are we?
That's a great question. So we are under application for permanent residency. So we would love to be able to stay in this country.
Excellent.
That's a 4 to 5 year process.
It's stretched out. Yeah, it does. I did mine 20 odd years ago, and it was an 18-month wait.
Right.
For me to come through, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but back then, I don't know if it's the same here. Back then, you couldn't work while it was going through the whole process, and you had to have money behind you to actually stay. Which, fortunately, I did. But still,
Wow.
yeah, it was 18-month wait, and you could not work. So,
that's fascinating. Thankfully, I can work for the next 4 to 5 years and not sort of otherwise I'd be crashing at Craig's house for the next 4 to 5 years.
Come on, spare room downstairs. Come on up.
All my 4 kids, here we come. So yeah, look, we're praying that the Lord would keep us here, and that's going to be the decision of your government, really, to put a stamp yes to our PR application in about 4 years' time. So that's what we're praying for. We trust that God's sovereign over all things, and so but does that answer your question? Yeah, that's sort of
yeah. I'm sold out. I love it here. I can take the sea breeze over the bullets any day. So, yeah. I mean,
especially from England.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Can't remember the last time I heard a gunshot tip on TV. Anyway, moving on.
Enough of your childhood.
I know. We went back someplace else.
Enough of your childhood.
Yeah, that's right. Just as the government was hearing us talk about immigration stuff, then you start talking about guns. So we'll see if I can actually.
We'll delete this later on. Anyhow,
they might be reviewing your application.
Hey, no, I've been stamped. I got the approval. I got it here. I'm actually considering citizenship this coming year. Actually,
right.
Yes. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm waiting.
What transpired that for you?
This is home. I'm cemented. This is home. 2 children. My wife's from here. This is home. I don't see myself ever living permanently in the U.S. again. So what's the point? I love this country. This country's a beautiful country. Lovely people. I don't see why I don't know why I've done it. I haven't done it so far. I don't know why. And funny enough, I've got several friends here. 3 from the neighborhood, actually. And 1 lives here on the coast. They're all citizens. So I don't know why. But I will do it.
As you think about becoming a citizen and that, what would you say that would? I mean, obviously, in every country, if Craig moved to Los Angeles, there'd be pros and cons, right? I mean, that's just natural. What would you say? What are some of the pros and cons of living here versus there?
Really, I only have 2.
I think you guys are supposed to be interviewing me.
I only have 2.
Don't need your bulletproof vest.
Pros is I don't actually think that that there is a large amount of people here who know how fabulous this country is. I don't think they really get it. Wow. This is a great country. Yeah. It looks after its people. Now, I know people out there going, oh, blah, 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 blah. I'm telling you right now, this place is pretty good at looking after its citizens. Yeah. I mean, you don't want to be homeless or jobless or broken down in Los Angeles or Texas or New York. Some of the worst places to be. Now, LA does have some sort of system, but it's not going to be what it is here. It's not. This is a great country to grow up in. I'm telling you, right, it is awesome. The only con that I would see here is that the collegiate system isn't what it is in the U.S. That's the college system.
Right.
That's my only thing. I often.
What? Not enough basketball scholarships?
No. Education-wise, I mean,
he came here on one of those. By the way,
if you wanted to go to college in the U.S., California, and you couldn't afford a university or even a state-run university, a junior college is next to nothing to go to, but you can still get a really good education. Now, they have TAFE here, but it's completely different because my guy's looking at going, my oldest, he's looking at going, and it's not what I'm used to. It's a little bit different. Whereas the JUCO system or the junior college system, the university system in California, at least that's what I know, it's a smorgasbord. Take a pick. I mean, when I graduated, I had a pick of 6 colleges to go to. It was 6 in front of me to go to. And it wasn't based on, anything like, okay, if you didn't get into this top tier level, you can't come to this school. Ivy League schools do that, I get that, but these state-run schools, they don't. But you had to pick. Here I find kind of lacking a bit. It's just, that's the only thing. Other than that, place is absolutely wonderful. Why would you want to live anywhere else? I'd want to visit everywhere else, yes, but I would live here. If I had to go back and live in the U.S., it would have to be Bay Area or Santa Cruz. That's about it. I couldn't live anywhere else.
Really?
Yes, I spent all my summer vacations with Santa Cruz, all of them in college.
The weather's a bit. It's okay.
I like cold weather. I love cold weather. If I had any place I could live here in Australia, it'd be Melbourne.
Really?
Everybody's tilting their head. I love Melbourne.
Stop it.
I love Melbourne, man. Oh, I love Melbourne. Whew.
Yeah.
Chirac, here I come.
Good culture, good coffee.
Let's not talk about coffee. That's a whole different thing. Anyway, we got a couple of minutes left here. So, Craig, you wanna draw anything out before we?
So you obviously had in your heart an interest in Eben's experience in pros and cons. Did you want to share your own thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I agree with everything you said. It's a beautiful country. Why would you want to live anywhere else? And I think, look, there's an interesting, there's a real need here, which this is why I want to be here, right? One of the things that you noted was, I think, if I can sum it up, quantity of scale when you talked about universities, right? So, you have, what did you say, 7 different options in California for your junior college versus your son is looking at TAFE.
Oh, no, when I graduated, I had 7 different colleges that I applied to, I think 12, and I got accepted to 7 of them. And so I had my pick. But here, the opportunities are, I mean, if it's not one of the universities, I think there's in TAFE, but beyond that, there's only development schools like Powers or something like that you can go, training schools. The concept of a junior college doesn't actually exist here. And the cost of a junior college to a university. I mean, I think when I was choosing, I think a state-run college for a semester, I think it was like $200 or maybe $800. A semester in a junior college was $50. So it's completely different. But you still have that shot at an education, a good education. I mean, you can't go to a junior college and study to be medicine. Doesn't work that way. Trades, yes, basic stuff, but you can't study to be a lawyer there or something like that. Doesn't work that way there at a JC. But state and state-run colleges and universities, yes, you could. So,
yeah, that's interesting. And you said just a few minutes left. I just wanted to personally thank you guys because hopefully, you said a first-time guest. It may be the last-time guest.
Of course not.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. So, but look, hopefully, we've been doing this whole thing via Zoom, and you lose so much with this. And I understand the COVID restrictions, but you lose so much face-to-face, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
And I wonder how many of the listeners now, if they haven't already tuned out, hearing 2 American blokes talk about the differences of culture and all that stuff. But I wonder how many people are listening along, and now that many churches are reopening, I guess I wonder if they're going back to those churches. I wonder if they're justifying live stream as a substitution for meeting.
That's a good question.
And yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like for decades now, people have conceived of church not as something that they're accountable to or something that their Christian identity is realized, but kind of an optional enhancement to their own personal spiritual journey. Mm. And, in their minds, and I think we've seen this with COVID, church is not essential, right? They think, because Christianity is just as easily practiced at home. Give me a Bible, some inspiring worship music, and maybe a few spiritual podcasts, and I'm good. Do I really need to go and assemble with God's people? And I just want to encourage every listener now that, look, the Bible says not to neglect meeting together.
That's right.
If you're in a place medically where you need to stay at home, that's understandable, and you can live stream in. But I think you'd be fooling yourself to think that you're gathering with your church online if you have actually capability of getting up and going and meeting with God's people. I mean, the term church means assembly, essentially. And so it's for you to say, oh, well, I'm just live streaming at home and I'm staying in my pajamas. No, I would say actually you really need to repent of that sin, brother or sister, and actually go and gather with a local church. Live streaming, though we're grateful for it, we're grateful for the Zoom that we have now. Live streaming is not church. It's not the church. And so the church is the assembled people of God meeting together on the Lord's day.
Yeah, wonderful.
And I'd encourage, look, for those of you, hopefully now they're tuning in, right? Because some go, I don't agree with that. Look at the scriptures, friend, because if you even read Hebrews 10, which I just quoted, if you keep reading in that chapter and you get to chapter 13, it talks about elders, right? And we're to be submissive to your elders because they are to give an account for your souls. So my question is, if you're just live streaming, who is your elders? Who are they? Who are the people giving an account for your souls? Are you just watching a podcast or a YouTube, or does that man that's preaching, does he even know your name? How is he supposed to give? Is he even living in the country or even in the state or whatever? And sure, I mean, there's some great preaching to be heard. I'm not discouraging that. I highly recommend listening to John Piper and John MacArthur and Alistair Begg and so on and so forth. And even here in Australia, you've got Phil Jensen and some really solid brothers. My brother Andrew Cortis down in Sydney, and some other just great, and Craig Lloyd up in Brisbane, some great preaching happening here. But you could tune in to Craig Lloyd's preaching, who's at Grace Bible Church, and it's phenomenal. And
so it's a convenience, not the norm. It's a convenience, and it should be extracurricular, to be honest. I mean, church isn't. It's not just on Sunday. It's not just on Sunday.
It's every day. I like it. It's
extracurricular. It's every day.
And listen, thank you, Pastor Rob, because I think you just hit the nail on the head. We are a people who are gathered. And if you don't gather, then you're not a people gathered. I want to encourage you to do that. And there are some rich opportunities at practicing the dimensions of the kingdom, which include community and interdependence, stuff that you really can't do when you're stuck at home on a screen. And this is the great grace that is afforded the body of Christ. A very helpful maybe position to leave us on today. Hey, we love that you've given us some time on the New Expressions program.
Yeah, thanks, bud.
Appreciate you heaps. Really glad that the Lord's drawn you to us here in this region. Blessings on you and your household, and on Wyoming Church of Christ as you continue to see the image of Christ fashioned in believers. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
We'll see you next week, folks.
You've been listening to an Encore presentation of New Expressions, which can be heard live every Friday morning at 10 a.m. on 94.9 Rima Central Coast.